Ladies and gentlemen, Mac is reasonably proud to present James Cook.
Thank you very much for coming tonight. My name is James. If you sit in this room for the next 45 minutes with your eyes open, you'll see my show, Adventures on Air. And that's about... Have you ever been in a situation where you've gone for a job that you really wanted, and through a mixture of hard work and a little bit of luck, you end up getting that job? And that tricks you into thinking that from now on, everything is going to be different. Everything is going to be amazing. We'll be on easy street, riding the gravy train with biscuit wheels. And then after a couple of months in that job, you realise that maybe it's not all it's cracked out to be. Because that's what happened to me. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I used to work as a local commercial radio presenter. So obviously I'm not used to speaking to as many people as this at any one time. In a career lasting 7 years, I worked at 5 different radio stations across the East and West Midlands. None of which exist anymore. Read into that what you will. But I confidently predict that on Monday this venue will be burnt to the ground and the earth plowed with salt. So what does it mean to be a local commercial radio presenter? Well, have you ever been driving somewhere and you've been flicking around on your radio trying to find something, anything to listen to really, and then eventually you stumble upon something and you think, oh my God, it's this song. I haven't heard this song for years, and you turn it up and you start getting into it, and it brings back all these great memories, going, oh my God, I remember listening to this when I was a teenager, and you start singing along, and then just as it gets to the chorus, just as it gets to the good bit, some wanker starts talking all over it. Well, that was me. I can only apologise. And now, I'm not saying it was a bad job. There were bad times, of course there were. I'm not going to bore you with those. A lot of good times too. But what I didn't expect was the amount of surreal experiences I'd end up having. And I'd like to start with one of those, if I may. I was working at a radio station in Nottingham, and I was the presenter of the Drive show. Now that's a little bit of radio jargon for you. Drive is the radio word for afternoon. The radio word for morning is breakfast. And this tells you everything you need to know about how commercial radio views the great British public. We imagine you wake up, you eat breakfast for 5 hours, and then at the stroke of noon, you all just get in your cars and just start driving around for no reason. But as I used to say to my boss at the time, you can't spell drivel without drive. And it was this boss of mine who called me into his office one day and he said, James, the Dancing on Ice live arena tour is coming to the Nottingham Arena tomorrow night. Their producers have asked us to supply one of our presenters to sit on the judging panel. And then he said something which to me has always been a red rag to a bull. Everyone else has said no. I thought, well, I'm doing that then, aren't I? So the next night I rock up at the Nottingham Arena for the Dancing on Ice live arena show. Now, who here has ever seen the TV show Dancing on Ice? 3 of you. You all have one over on me. I've never seen the show. I've still never seen an entire episode all the way through. And if I'm honest, and usually this is where I lose the audience and have a whole bunch of walkouts, I don't really think ice dancing is a proper sport. So obviously I was the ideal person for this job. And I show up and I introduce myself and I'm shepherded in backstage, and then I'm introduced to the guy who's going to be hosting the show. And it's a man called Andy Peters. Now this is usually a good time for me to figure out who in the audience is about my age. You see, when I was growing up, we didn't have multi-channel TV. We had 3 hours of children's programming a day, all of it presented by Andy Peters. I'm used to seeing him on the TV in the corner of my parents' lounge. And then suddenly he was there. By the way, I'm not telling you this to try and impress you. I'm telling you because it was a surreal moment for me. You know, if I'd have met anyone truly impressive in my radio career, I would have probably already told you. You know, if I'd have met Barack Obama, the show would be called I Met Barack Obama. Who wants to touch me? But I haven't met Barack Obama. I met Chico off of the X Factor twice. Turns out he's actually quite a nice guy. Off air he said to us, and I quote, it's all bollocks, isn't it? It's hard not to warm to someone with that level of self-awareness. There was a radio station at Coventry he came to visit us at, and while he was there, he spent about 3.5 minutes on the toilet. Oh, I know this because me and one of the producers at that radio station, just to entertain ourselves, really, whenever we had celebrities in to be interviewed and they went off to use the station toilet, we'd time them. Not for on air, but just for our own spreadsheet. And so that one day, one of us could get to do this. Ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to present the top 5 celebrities who spent the longest on the Mercer FM toilet between 2003 and 2006. At 5, the aforementioned Chico. 3 minutes 27. That was his Chico time. At 4, Kimberly from Girls Aloud, 3 minutes 44. And look at that facial expression there. She smelt something Chico's there for her. At 3, Lamar, 4 minutes 17. And I think this is proof that this chart is genuine, because why else would I put someone so needlessly obscure halfway through it? Thought that was obscure? Check this one out. It's the one in G4 who looked like a young Ricky Gervais. 4 minutes 38. His Bohemian Rhapsody. But at number 1, ladies and gentlemen, the number 1 celebrity who spent the longest on the Mercer FM toilet between 2003 and 2006 was Scotland's very own Darius Dinesh. 8 minutes 52. And Scotland gets the gold. Incidentally, when Girls Aloud came to Coventry, and I think we could all agree that would be a fantastic name for a documentary. Now, it's tradition in commercial radio, whenever you interview a pop star, after the interview, you write things down for them to read out so you can record it and use it as jingles. For example, you get Cheryl Cole to say something like, and now I'm going to attempt to do Cheryl Cole's accent. In my run in Edinburgh, she was from all over the world. So let's see where on the globe she's from today. Hello? I'm Cheryl Cole from Girls Aloud. That's actually quite good. And whenever I'm in Coventry, I listen to Mercer FM. I don't know who we're trying to kid with this bullshit, but we're doing it anyway. Now, at the time, I was the co-host on The Breakfast Show. My co-host's name was Rue. Now, that's short for Ruby. The show was called Rue and James at Breakfast. We give Cheryl Cole the thing to read out, and she says, "Hello, this is Cheryl Cole from Girls Aloud. And whenever I'm in Coventry, I listen to Are You and James at Breakfast?" Like she's Ron Burgundy, and we put a question mark on the teleprompter. And not one of us said anything. No one corrected her, because we heard she was a little bit fighty. Oh, and I completely forgot, and I always forget this bit. This show mainly consists of a bitter old man ranting about his job on commercial radio. Of course I'm going to start sounding like Alan Partridge. That's inevitable, there's not much we can do about that. Is there anyone in who's like a big fan of the TV character? Or you are, sir? What's your name, sir?
Stephen.
Stephen, very nice to meet you. What I've got here is Alan Partridge's face on a stick. If I start partridging hard, you wave this in the air, Stephen. Look at that. If you're trigger happy, I'll take it off you. If I start partridging hard, you wave this, I'll know to rein it in, okay? And we can all pretend we've seen a show with Steve Coogan in it. There you go, Steve. We'll do a practice run, all right? Oh yes, I met lots of pop stars when I worked on the radio, including Norwegian pop sensations, AHA! That's how that's going to work. Where was I? Oh yes, I was shaking hands with Andy Peters, which is not a euphemism. And he was very nice. And he introduced me to the other judges. Now, you have to bear in mind, I'd never seen the TV show. I understand that apparently these people are celebrities in their own right, but I didn't know who they were. There were 4 of them. One of them was a woman. I'm nothing if not observant. And her name was Ruth, and she was very nice and kind, and sort of calmed me down and explained to me how the show was going to work, and very friendly. The other 3 male judges, and I wasn't supposed to overhear this conversation, but I did. The other 3 male judges were made by one of the producers to come over and say hello to me because they didn't want to. Ironically, for ice dancing judges, I sensed a coldness there. And they sort of came over and shook my hand and kind of, oh, you're tonight's, are you? Well, of course, your very presence here ruins this as a sporting event. And then it was time to start the show. And Andy Peters walks out to do the beginning bit, and there are 10,000 people in the Nottingham Arena. The biggest crowd I've ever, and let's face it, will ever be in front of. And Andy Peters warms them up, the best any man can, bereft as he is of a duck puppet. And then he introduces Torvill and Dean onto the ice. Now, Nottingham is Torvill and Dean's hometown, so they get a standing ovation. The atmosphere is electric. And then one by one, Andy Peters starts introducing the judges, each one getting a bigger round of applause than the last, culminating in Ruthie, who gets the loudest because she's the nicest. And then Andy Peters said this. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a special treat for you now. And 10,000 people went, ooh. That's right, we've got a celebrity guest judge. Meanwhile, I'm backstage going, oh, there's another judge. They're cutting it fine. And then Andy Peters said this. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the judging panel, from Trent FM's drive show, James Cook. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard 10,000 people simultaneously say the word who. But I have. And the collective exhalation of breath knocked me backwards on my feet as I emerged through the curtain, waving and smiling like an idiot. Sit off the end of the judging panel. To 10,000 conversations going, who is he? Works on Trent, apparently. I don't listen to Trent now, do I? I listen to Hart. Yeah, everyone around here does. And it was time for the show to start properly. And the first celebrity ice dancer swooshes onto the ice. And it's the TV presenter Melinda Messenger, accompanied by her professional partner. And then they proceed to do an ice dance. And all of a sudden, I am an ice dancing judge. And I've got to work out, based on nothing, a score to give Melinda Messenger. Now, they've given us these electronic keypads, numbers 1 to 10. And I'm thinking, well, this is a better ice dance than I'm ever going to be able to do in my entire life. However, Ruth had indicated that later in the show, there were going to be more technically proficient celebrity ice dancers. So I need to be able to give myself somewhere to go with the marks. So I figured if I give Melinda about 2/3, that would be fair. So I decided I'm going to give her 6 out of 10. So I clicked 6. And then Andy Peters said, let's find out what the judges thought. James. And I say 6. And 10,000 people start cheering and applauding and whooping and stamping their feet. Melinda Messenger is visibly shaken. She looks over to where I am, gets eye contact and mouths the words, thank you. Because it turns out ice dancing is marked out of 6. And no one had told me. Why were there 10 buttons on the keyboard? I'd given myself nowhere to go. But I had discovered an excellent way of getting 10,000 people to cheer and applaud. So I gave everyone 6. It really pissed off the 3 male judges. I hope it comes across in that story how ridiculous I find it that me, an idiot, that I got to do a job like that on that night. It makes no sense. But I think there is that kind of thinking out there, particularly among event organisers and PR companies and corporate clients, that think, oh, we've got an event going on, let's get someone off the local radio along. That'll be a magic formula for making a crowd appear. No. While I was at Nottingham, me and my co-host Al, we were once paid a ridiculous amount of money, £250 each, to sit for 2 hours on a Saturday afternoon in the window of a Honda dealership playing scale electric against each other. What man in their early 30s is going to turn down that job? And do you know how many people came to that event? Feel free to have a guess.
No.
4.
I'll accept your first answer. 0. Because why would anyone? A friend of yours came up to you and went, are you doing anything Saturday afternoon? No, I'm at a loose end. Well, I'll tell you what, 2 people you've never heard of are playing scale electric in a car dealership. Wanna go? No! You maniac. Why are we even friends? We didn't care though, we were getting paid a stupid amount of money to tit about. Some of the other under-attended ones weren't as much fun. Lutterworth Festival. Lutterworth, small market town, yeah. Lutterworth. In Leicestershire. Imagine their market square on a bank holiday Monday afternoon. We rocked up in the roadshow rig, which is a big lorry. You open up the side, it forms a stage. There are video screens, a DJ booth, and the presenters in the middle attempting to entertain a crowd of 3. Because 3 is technically a crowd. I mean, what can we do with 3 people? We can't even fall back on the old commercial radio favourite, splitting the audience down the middle and see which half can cheer the loudest. It'd be 2 against 1, it wouldn't be fair, it'd be like blockbusters. You're definitely going to need that now. Ready? There's a part of Nottingham called West Bridgeford. It's really nice. It's like the Harborne of Nottingham. Not yet. Ready? This guy here, I opened the West Bridgeford branch of the Co-op supermarket. Me. Who the fuck am I? I was there earlier this year. There is still a framed photo on the wall of me cutting a ribbon with some scissors. God knows what the shoppers of West Bridgeford are thinking when they see this picture. Well, that's an avant-garde piece of art. A suburban supermarket. Or more realistically, oh look, they let a competition winner do it. Which in a sense is exactly what I was. I turned on Nuneaton's Christmas light. Oh yeah, they've only got one. In Nuneaton they still view electricity with suspicion. They turn on their Christmas light and then the town elders attack it with hammers, trying to defeat the evil spirits they believe lurk within the bulb. I was essentially a music presenter for a lot of my time on the radio. And what kind of music does commercial radio play? Yes, that's right. And normally someone says crap, but that's right. We're obviously far too polite. Yeah. Yeah, they play today's best mix, don't they? Of the 80s, 90s and now. That's what they keep telling us. Heart FM, they play more music variety. Heart FM, more music variety. At any one time on the Heart FM playlist, there are 70 songs. More music variety. Than what? My nan's iPod. I'll tell you what though, it works. It's incredibly effective. Their listening figures have never been higher. They figured it out. It's not about broadcasting, it's about narrowcasting, about giving the listeners what they want. You know exactly what you're going to get if you listen to Heart FM. You're going to get Adele, you're going to get Buble, you're going to get something off the Dirty Dancing soundtrack, and you're going to get Build Me at Buttercup. But when you're the music presenter and it's your job to introduce the same songs day out, it can become easy to sound a little bit bored on air. And our bosses were wise to that, so they sent us off on a course to learn. And here's what we learned. Method number 1. Tell the listeners the story behind the song. Because they'll always associate that song with your radio station after that. The example we were given was the song Yesterday by the Beatles. Now some of you will already know this, but the tune to Yesterday came to Paul McCartney in a dream. And Yesterday isn't even the original title. Does anyone know what the original title is?
Scrambled eggs.
There you go. Scrambled it. Oh, the quizzes are in. Oh baby, how I love your legs. That was how the original lyric went before he changed it. Now I think that's a fairly interesting piece of trivia about one of the most popular songs ever written. But we didn't get to play Yesterday by the Beatles. And it was quite hard to find information that good about the songs on our playlist. You'd end up saying things like, well, this is the new single by Rihanna. And the story behind this song is that Rihanna's record company wanted to make some money. There is another method though, method number 2, and the wanky radio terminology for this is reframing. You tell the listeners something about the song that means they listen to it differently every time after. Again, they'll associate it with the radio station they heard it. I'll give you some examples. Do you know the song Mr. Brightside by the Killers? What's he doing in her dress? Have you ever heard Bonnie Tyler's Match.com profile? Right. He's got to be strong. Fair enough, maybe she's got a lot of unopened jars. He's got to be fast. Really? Is this something women are looking for these days? Speed. And he's got to be fresh from a fight. You can almost imagine Bonnie Tyler standing outside the cinema going, well, I tell you what, boy, if you haven't just had a scrap, I'm not interested. She goes on to sing, well, she would if I did it with properly. Slick. Yeah, it's Mountain Rescue, Bonnie. You've climbed a mountain in a thunderstorm. There's no way to meet a man. Back with the Beatles, one of the most beautiful and enduring love songs ever written by George Harrison, I believe, is the song Something. weddings, do you reckon? Has that been the first dancer since it came out in 1969? 100,000? Maybe more. It's a beautiful song. It's ruined for you forever if you imagine a question mark after the word wow. All George Harrison ever wanted was a woman with good spatial awareness. And the other mainstay of commercial radio, of course, is the competitions. The listeners love the competitions, and if we're honest, as presenters, we barely tolerate them. You have to bear in mind, we often don't get a lot of say in what's going on. You certainly don't get to pick the prizes. These are all dictated to us by the sales team. A friend of mine on a different radio station told me once on his show he had to give away, as a prize, fish and chips for one. I said, oh my God, what a terrible prize. He said, well, I tell a lie. What it was, every day, Monday to Friday, I get a different winner on every day. And then on the Friday, we put those 5 names into a hat, and then we pick one of those out. And they'd win the fish and chips. It was 20% chance of fish and chips. I said, blimey, I bet you had no callers. He said, no, full switchboard, it was Wolverhampton. Now, there was a time when we had a boss who didn't treat us very well, didn't really know how to deal with other people, and we also suspected he didn't really know what he was doing. So what we used to do was intentionally pitch ridiculous ideas for competitions, just to see if he'd let us get away with them. I'll tell you some, you tell me if these got on air or not. Number 1, political prisoner frying pan. We played the sound clip of a political prisoner speaking. It's obscured with sizzling bacon. Listeners just have to say who it is, and if they do, they win a frying pan. Seen that got on air?
No.
Yeah. No, that didn't get on. What about this one, number 2? And I thought this was a good prize, actually. It was a romantic meal for 2 at a swanky Italian restaurant on Valentine's Day. Ooh, Italian restaurant, that got us thinking. We came up with Roman, or Bran, or Witch. Roman or Bran or Witch. We're going to name something. It's either the name of a famous Roman from history, or a food with a high Bran content, or the name of a consumer advice magazine. Listeners just have to say which one. Do you think that got on air? Of course it did. That got on air, my proudest achievement. And I have children. Last one. Now at the time, Richard and Judy TV show, they had a competition which was proving to be very popular called You Say, We Pay. And our boss said, we want something a bit like that, but not so close that we get sued. So we came up with, you say you're gay, we pay. Listeners ring up, tell us that they're gay. We send them a fine. Do they have to be gay? No. They just have to say they are. Do you think that got on air?
No.
Yes.
That got to within 1 hour of being on air. It had all the production made and everything. It was only when our boss's boss found out about it, rang us direct and told us to cut it out and stop picking on him. And then there'd be the competitions that would take over the entire radio station for weeks on end with some fantastic prize. The stations I worked at, it was always £5,000. And what they do is they find like a really obscure sound effect and they kind of play it at you. And you'd have to say what it is to win the money. So you'd hear something like this. And round here it'd be called something like Birmingham's secret sound. You go, £5,000 to be won if you can tell us what Birmingham's secret sound is. Anyone want to have a guess?
Sucking the last bit, that's the McDonald's milkshake.
Oh, sucking the last bit out of the McDonald's milkshake. What's your name, sir?
Tristan.
Tristan.
Yeah.
is that, yeah, is it? I can't be bothered. Tristan. Yeah. There we go. Alright, Tristan, let's do this like a regular commercial radio phone-in call. Alright. You be Tristan, I'll be the presenter, and I'll sort of talk you through how it would work, okay? Okay, we've got a caller on the line right now to play Birmingham's Secret Sound. £5,000 to be won, thanks to Shankelman's Carpets. Where we've got quite a lot of carpets that we'd like to sell. Hello caller, what's your name?
Hi, Tristan.
Hi Tristan, where are you from?
Nottingham.
My old parish. Now, it'd be my job in the call at this point, Tristan, to find some information out about you that's going to make the rest of the listeners like you enough to want you to win. Okay? So what have you been up to today, Tristan?
I've been playing badminton.
Okay, that's great. I'll be honest with you, these competitions are a nightmare from our point of view. You have to bear in mind, we're not the BBC, we're commercial radio. Often we're the only person in the building. We have production teams and broadcast assistants, and we've got a whole list of sponsorship credits and jingles and production that we have to play out in the right order, otherwise we get told off by our boss, the sales team boss, and the corporate client. Also bear in mind that I'll be recording this phone call while the song is playing out on air. Now that's just in case you swear or say something contentious. Now, so while we're recording it, I've got my corner of my eye on the countdown clock on the song, because I've got to record this, I've got to get it edited, and I've got to get it on air when this song finishes. With all this going on, I'm afraid I just don't have the mental capacity to also pay attention to the things you're actually saying. Which is why we end up saying generic shit like, okay, that's great. Just hope you haven't just gone, yeah, my entire family's just been run over. So £5,000 to be won, Tristan. What would you spend that on?
A holiday.
Okay, that's great. So here is that Birmingham Secret Sound for £5,000, Tristan. What do you think it is?
I think it's someone sucking the last bit out of a McDonald's milkshake.
You think it's someone sucking the last bit out of a McDonald's milkshake? Always pause halfway through the repeat of the answer. It helps to build the tension. And then you can kind of trick people into thinking that maybe he's got it right by saying this. Let's have another listen. For £5,000. It's a brilliant guess. You always have to say it was a brilliant guess, even when, you know. But it's not the right answer, I'm afraid. Tristan, at this point, you can just hang up in a fury. Your next chance to win with Birmingham Secret Sound and Shankelman's Carpets is coming up after 6 o'clock here on whatever this station is, FM. And that's how that would work. And this, by the way, cost me 79p off a sound effects download website. So I'm getting my money's worth. Because this, that is the sound of someone scraping the bottom of the barrel. So now when you hear that competition, you know what's really going on. Another competition I was lucky enough to be part of that was a huge success and has since been copied all around the country was called £1,000 Minute. A listener rings in, they've got a minute to answer 10 general knowledge questions correctly. And if they do it, they win £1,000. Sounds really exciting on air. Now, I don't have £1,000, but I've got £100. Who would like to play for £100 on the £100 Minute? I'm not saying anything about Scottish people, but in Edinburgh, sea of hands. You would say? Yeah. Alright, what's your name? Mark. Ladies and gentlemen, give Mark a big round of applause. from, Mark?
Just up the road, near Whittle, Hollywood.
Oh, from Hollywood! All right. Okay, here's how it's going to work. I've got 10 questions. If you answer them all correctly, the money is yours. All right. If you don't know the answer to any of them, just say pass. We'll come back to it at the end if there's time. All right. Make sure you say your answer nice and loud and clear so that the people in the back row can hear you. And also, I need to be able to verify that it's the right answer. Okay. Now, I need someone in the audience who can time for me on a watch or an iPhone, please. I need a volunteer to do a stopwatch. Anyone got a watch? Oh, lady back there. What's your name? Kath. Kath, if you could be so kind as to put 1 minute on the clock, however you choose to do that. And we'll start when you say start, and we'll stop when you say stop. Kath? Yep. Please, please, please do not mess with the fabric of time. Okay? All right. So, Mum, what would you do with £100 if you won it?
I'd go on holiday.
Where to?
Greek islands.
Well, our economy is at the time, so we probably do quite well. All right. Do we want Mark to win? Yes! Usually people say I'd buy a round of drinks for the audience, but that's fine. Right, Kath, you start when you say start.
Start.
Cardiff is the capital of which country?
Wales.
Correct. Question 2. Who is the President of the United States of America?
Barack Obama.
Correct. Question 3. Which 80s pop group had a hit with Wham Rap? Correct. Question 4. Police Academy 2 was the sequel to which film?
Police Academy 1.
Correct. Question 5. Where on your body would you wear a hat?
My head.
Correct. Question 6. If you were hitting a golf ball with a golf club, what sport would you be playing? Correct. Question 7. What comes next in this sequence? 1, 2, 3.
4.
Correct. Question 8. Are rainbows pretty? Yes, they are. Question 9. Is it a good idea to put pointy things in your mouth? No, it isn't. And finally, £100. Question 10. In Shakespeare's Richard III, how does the titular monarch's maliciousness manifest itself differently when directed at the female rather than the male characters? Cite examples from the text to support your arguments. Time's up! Time's up! No one needs empty-handed though. You have got a shop soiled chocolate orange. What a terrible person I am. I can only assure you that in the 40 or so performances of this show I've spent well over £100 on chocolate orange. But let's just say, hypothetically, let's just say that once there was a radio station that ran a competition called £1,000 Minute, along with similar lines, and it was specifically engineered and written so that every morning a listener would get 9 out of 10. Now it's not as hard to do as you think. All you have to do is get one question that's not noticeably but significantly harder than the others and hide it somewhere in the middle. And so every morning when it's 9 out of 10, people start listening. Oh, did you hear it this morning? Someone got 9 out of 10. I know, I can't believe they only got 9 out of 10. Well, we better make sure we listen tomorrow. And it builds the listening figures. And then let's just say that one day a guy rings up and he just happened to know the answer to the harder question. And he won the £1,000. And on air, the hypothetical presenters go nuts. Hooray, someone's won the money, and it sounds wonderful. And everyone in that town went to work with a spring in their step that day. But after the show, the presenters were taken into the boss's office and given a thorough bollocking because he hadn't budgeted for any one winning. I am sure that that kind of thing no longer goes on in commercial radio. Members of my family have done very well for themselves. I have one more thing to play before the interval. And it's the recording of the first time I was ever on the radio. The year was 1984. I was 7 years old. Now the local station around here, then Radio WM, they had presenter Ed Doolan, who, on his Sunday morning show, Uncle Ed, on his Sunday morning show, children could ring up and tell him a joke. And if he didn't know the punchline, you won a book token. Now, you've probably worked out for yourselves by now, I was quite a precocious child. I fancied my chances. So I rang up, and I got on. And bless her, my mother recorded it. She pressed play and record on the cassette deck of the wooden hi-fi that took up the entire wall of our front room. And so this is a 30-year-old cassette that's been put onto an iPod. We'll play with the sound levels, it should be okay. It should be okay. Oh, and just by sheer happenstance, my mom starts the recording halfway through Ed Doolan saying something, so it makes it sound like he's saying the word balls.
Balls, and hello to James Cook, who's 7 and lives in Castle Brom. Hello, James. What sort of a week have you had?
Right, who asks a 7-year-old? Been to school then. 7. Like you white water rafting down the Zambezi. Lizzie, could we make it a little bit louder, please? Thank you.
It's been alright, has it? Okay, matey, let's go.
Okay, 7-year-old me's about to tell the joke. I'm going to tell you in advance, and the reason is this. There will be people in this room who already know the punchline. If that's you, please keep it to yourself, because it'll spoil it for the people who don't know, and we're all going to find out in a minute anyway. The setup is, what has William the Conqueror and Kermit the Frog both got in common?
What has William the Conqueror and Kermit the Frog both got in common?
What has William the Conqueror and Kermit the Frog both got in common?
Now there then follows a portion where Ed Doolan tries to work out what the punchline could possibly be, using his mind power. But he's not alone in this. He is joined in the studio by some children from a local school and the Olympic swimmer Adrian Morehouse.
William the Conqueror and Kermit the Frog. Come on, Adrian. No, you can't think of anything. You see, we bring an Olympic gold medalist in here to try and beat you.
Really? Seems like an odd booking. He didn't ask him about the swimming at all.
And we're not having a good day. Come on, matey, you caught school. Get some frog's legs. Frog's legs. William the Conqueror, he ate frog's legs, didn't he? Because he was French.
Yep, that's what they eat in France, Ed. Snails and frog's legs and baguettes, and they ride around on bicycles going honey, honey, hon. You daft braces.
I don't know, apart from the fact that William the Conqueror ate frog's legs, we can't think what it would be. You tell us.
Again, I'll tell you in advance. They've both got the same middle name. Wow. Can't tell you how much better that reaction is than on the recording. Listen, pump it up to this then. Now I know this is here because I've listened to this through headphones and I hope it comes across through the speakers. What happens is 7-year-old me does punchline, then there is silence. In the background, Olympic swimmer Adrian Morehouse goes, oh God.
They've both got the same middle name.
That's true. They've got the same middle name. That's true, James. I never thought of that. That's very good.
And then Ed Doolan says something that completely reframes everything you've just heard.
You've got to be in the running for a book prize. If I get soft, hello.